Hey guys, we are in Zechariah chapters 10 to 12 today, and after some really promising words of hope through some apocalyptic visions and then some kind of prophetic encouragement, the tides turn in these chapters. This reflects kind of Zechariah's time later in his life. Remember, he was one of the first returnees to Jerusalem after the exile, and he'd come and encouraged Zerubbabel to rebuild the temple and to anoint Joshua who as high priest. And through these two leaders, there was this hope and this promise of God beginning to restore his people and the land again. And there are all of these really incredible promises of what God was going to do, in this call to remain faithful to God, to be people who pursue truth and justice and mercy and peace and compassion and generosity, unlike their ancestors. And yet, for a time, again, as this rebuilding was happening and these men were leading, we have this kind of miniature picture of God's promises starting to come true. But then later in his life, these same things stopped happening, as we'll see in just a second. And so we talked about how these promises are God saying to his people, I am going to restore you. These two people who I've raised up are going to be my representatives of administering justice and peace and restoring the hope to God, my people again. However, God also recognizes in doing this that eventually all of these people will fail, that they are humans, they are broken, and they have this tendency to just return to the things that they were once doing, to abandon their trust in Yahweh, to go again to being selfish and mistreating one another. And so God kind of sees this, and he makes this promise to say, I'm raising up these people, and I'm going to start restoring you, my people, and these people are representatives of that. But I know you are going to mess it up again. I know you're going to return to your old ways, but guess what? Hold on. There's a promise. I'm going to send someone. He's called the branch. He's called the king. He's called the priest. He is the one that God is going to send once and for all, who is not going to act in the way these previous human rulers have, who's going to be God's perfect representative, follow God's law to the letter, and he's going to restore everything to right again. And it's through belief and trust in him that God is going to begin to institute his forever kingdom, where there is no more peace no more pain, but only peace and serenity again. So that's our picture that we just left behind. Zechariah 10 to 12, as I said, happens later on, and we get this return to this brokenness again. Zechariah spends those chapters calling out the leaders, the evil shepherds of the people who are mistreating the sheep. This is likely a reference to those leaders, the priests, the religious leaders, but also people like who are in positions like Zerubbabel, who are in charge to bring restoration to the land and help people to follow the ways of God, that over time they've all slipped off and they're back into their old habits of being selfish, being unjust, kind of depending on other things other than God for their happiness. And so God brings this warning. He says, again, because of this, you're going to find yourself in a bad place. It's not going to go well for you. But again, in the midst of this, there are these things of promise that, again, I'm going to save my people. Despite all these things that you do, guess what? I'm not quite done yet. And eventually he says, and the greatest source of hope that I'm going to give you, even that you're going to reject. I'm going to send this person who is going to have the spirit of David, this great king of old, and my spirit on him, and yet you are going to pierce him, Zechariah says. You're going to kill him and realize we've really messed up. This is the one God sent, and this is how we treated him. And so these verses kind of end on this really sour note. But one thing that I think is really important to hold on to is recognizing that despite our failure, God continues to come through time and time and time again, and continues to paint this beautiful picture that despite our brokenness, he is going to come to our rescue, and he is still at work building this perfect kingdom. I skipped over this in the last session, but I think this is really incredible. In chapter 8, Zechariah says, this is what it's going to look like when this is just as the king is about to come and institute his forever kingdom in the end of chapter 9. He says, when you finally cling to this person, many peoples of the inhabitants of many cities will yet come, and the inhabitants of one city will go to another, and they will say, let's go at once and go entreat the Lord and seek the Lord Almighty. I myself am going, and many people and powerful nations will come to seek the Lord and entreat him. And then it says, this is what the Lord Almighty says. In those days, 10 people from all languages and nations will take hold of one Jew. Remember, a Jewish person then is one of God's people. So we'll take hold of one of God's people by the hem of his robe and say, let us go with you because we have heard that God is with you. This is the picture of what God's people look like when they cling to God's promised one. The branch, the king, the servant, this one that's going to come that isn't broken and filled with sin like we are, but the one who is mighty and mighty to save and powerful and stands above all of our limited human kind of falling back and turning to our old ways. And when we cling to him, despite our continued sin and turning away, this kingdom will essentially get established one day. That he is at work, even now, doing this. And there's this picture that when we continue to hold on to him, everyone will see us trusting in this one who is above it all and say, you know what, I want to go with you because I have heard that this God is with you. And so, despite the kind of negativity of these chapters, it's a reminder for us to continue to cling on to this one that God has sent, who we know to be Jesus, to cling on to him, the one who is establishing his forever kingdom. He is at work doing that as we speak, and so let us put our trust in him. We're going to continue to fail and mess up, just like the people of Zechariah's time, just like all the people of the Old Testament, the New Testament that we've seen, but Jesus never fails. And so our hope is to keep coming back to him, the one who's going to make us and all things right again. And when we do that, other people will catch on and want to know what that's all about too. So I'll leave those thoughts with you, and we'll finish up the book of Zechariah next week. Bye.